This is a photograph of a Remington 750. It is one of the most popular hunting rifles in America. This rifle would be entirely legal under this so-called assault weapons ban. Now, I have a question for you, Mr. LaPierre. Functionally, in terms of the operation of this firearm, this is a semi-automatic firearm. You pull the trigger once, one bullet comes out. Is the operational firing mechanism in this firearm materially different from the so-called assault weapons ban that this bill is targeted at?
No, it's not.
Now, what the assault weapons ban instead targets are cosmetic features. So, for example, I am holding in my hand a pistol grip. Under this proposed legislation, if this piece of plastic, this pistol grip, were attached to this rifle, it would suddenly become a banned assault weapon. Now, I would ask you, Mr. LaPierre, are you aware of any evidence to suggest that attaching a piece of plastic to this rifle would make it in any way whatsoever even slightly more dangerous?
Now, that's the problem with the whole bill that Senator Feinstein introduced is it's based on falsehoods to people that do not understand firearms, to convince them that the performance characteristics of guns that they are trying to ban through that bill are different than the performance characteristics that they're not trying to ban. They make bigger holes, they're rapid fire, they spray bullets, they're more powerful, they're heavy armor. All of that is simply not true. I mean, the AR-15 that people uses a .223, and I hear in the media all the time, and people say, well, no deer hunter would use something that powerful. I mean, 243s, 270s, 25-06, 30-06, 308s, dozens of other calibers used in hunting are more powerful. I mean,
so let me make sure I understand that right. This deer rifle, which is entirely legal and is used by millions of Americans, is sold in the identical caliber as the so-called assault weapons ban, although those look scarier because they have a piece of plastic attached to them.
And the Ruger Mini 14, which Senator Feinstein exempts in her bill, it uses .223. The AR-15, which has the handle on the bottom, which she prohibits, also uses the exact same.
Okay, I'm out of time. I want to make one final point, if I may, which is there has been much attention drawn to gun shows, and indeed the statistic of 40% has been bandied about. Now, that statistic is unfortunately based on a study that occurred before the background check went into effect, and so it is a highly dubious figure. But I do want to point to what the Department of Justice has said, which is in slide 5. The Department of Justice has said that firearms used in crimes, 1.9% of those firearms come from gun shows. So again, in response to this crime, this body does not act to enact anti-crime legislation to prevent violent crimes. Instead, it targets 1.9% of the guns, and a substantial portion of those guns were sold by licensed firearms dealers who already conduct a background check. So even that 1.9%, a substantial portion, are already subject to a background check. I would ask, Mr. Chairman, if we have a second round, I would like to additionally get into the effectiveness or lack thereof of gun control. I wanted to ask a question of Chief Johnson. Your testimony here today was in some tension with what I have heard from police officers serving on the ground in the state of Texas, namely that your testimony, as I understand it, was that in your judgment, stricter gun control laws would prove effective in limiting crime. And the data I have seen suggests that the evidence does not support it. If one looks in the District of Columbia, which had the strictest gun control laws in the country and banned firearms, we saw that when the ban was implemented in 1976, there were fewer than 200 homicides. That rose to over 350 in 1988 and to over 450 in 1993. That pattern is reflected across major urban centers, those urban centers that have the strictest gun bans. For example, the city of Chicago unfortunately suffers from, according to the latest statistics, 15.9 murders per 100,000 citizens. Your city, the city of Baltimore, has 31.3 murders per 100,000 citizens. That contrasts with other major urban areas, such as my hometown of Houston, which does not have strict gun control laws like the jurisdictions I was talking about, that has a murder rate of 9.2 per 100,000, one-third of Baltimore's. And in fact, the city of Austin, our capital, has a murder rate of 3.5 per 100,000, one-tenth that of Baltimore. And so my question to you is, in light of the evidence, what empirical data supports your contention that restricting the rights of law-abiding citizens to possess firearms would decrease crime rather than making them more vulnerable to violent criminals, which is what I would suggest the data indicates has happened when it's been done?
We know that nearly 2 million prohibited purchasers were stopped from obtaining their firearms since 1994 to 2009. Senator, I would tell you that your homicide statistics would be much greater, and often missed from this conversation is the medical intervention that takes place today at the EMT level in the field to the shock trauma facilities that are very robust in our nation today. This data would be much higher. I'm here today representing 9 major police executive leadership organizations, and for the sake of time, I'm not going to read all those. I think they're a matter of the record. The problem in areas like Baltimore and New York and Chicago, with some of the toughest gun regulations and laws in the nation, is outside weapons coming in. It's about the background check problem. It's about acquisition of these firearms outside of the normal firearms licensed dealer process, and that's what we have to fix. In addition, high-capacity magazines are a problem, and certainly we're seeing assault weapons used each and every day in crimes, and police are seizing these weapons each and every day. And holistically, with the plan that the President's laid out, and frankly some of the bills that have been put forth, we can make our nation a much safer place.